You've booked a professional headshot, but maybe your skin isn't quite as youthful feeling as it once was, or maybe you have a few blemishes that are really bothering you at the moment. What can you really expect in retouching on a professional headshot? To show you, I thought I'd grab a photo of myself and kind of walk you through the retouching process. This demo isn't meant to show you how to retouch. It's really just meant to show you kind of the process that I make, and I'll be going through and toggling the various adjustments on and off so you can kind of see how I phase in through the process. Thanks for stopping by. I'm Scott Lawrence, a professional headshot and portrait photographer based here in Detroit, and I've worked with countless professionals just like you. For the best headshot tips and tricks, please subscribe and ring that bell so you'll be notified when new videos are released. As a full-time professional headshot photographer, I've retouched thousands of images, so I've seen it all. This video will give you a better understanding of responsible retouching. If you're not careful, it's real easy to overdo it. Okay, so let's jump right in. First, I'll just fine-tune the exposure. So for a studio image like this, there should be detail in both the darkest and the brightest parts of the image. Then I'll double check the white balance. That's the setting that either warms up or cools down the feel of the overall lighting of the image. So it's important for most studio images to have a daylight balanced feel. So it doesn't look like it's an overly cool or warm tone from the light. The studio lights are generally set to a daylight white balance. So the adjustments here are really meant to kind of fine-tune or compensate for any minor variations in skin tone, or sometimes you have ambient light that can interfere with the image itself. Sometimes this happens when I'm on location, for example, working in a conference room, or especially outside too. That can introduce a lot of light color contamination. So that's why white balance is an important first step or kind of foundation of the whole retouching process. Then I'll add a little contrast, kind of sharpen things up a little bit, and I'll again double check the brighter and the darker parts of the image to make sure that any of those adjustments haven't pushed things too far one way or the other. Next, I'll do a quick teeth whitening. So I'll toggle back and forth here so you can see less is more. Usually I make an adjustment and then dial it back just a bit. So again, it's a very subtle adjustment. You want to go just enough and then pull it back generally so that it's not overdone. So don't worry about any coffee stains on your teeth. A simple whitening is pretty straightforward. Maybe you have a chipped tooth or a tooth that's a little crooked and kind of gives a shadow. There is a lot you can do with teeth. However, it can get complicated. I like to look at it on a case-by-case basis, and I'll work with each client and kind of let them know what's doable, what's reasonable. When you go too far on teeth, though, it's easy to have a kind of an over-processed look, though. So again, moderation is the key. Remember, too, the headshot is all about looking like you, so if your teeth aren't perfect, and really whose teeth are perfect, people are going to notice that your teeth are overcorrected, so that's something to keep in mind too. With any retouching, you're really going for the best version of yourself, not a different version of yourself. That's kind of the way I like to think about it. So now we jump into Photoshop. Here you can see I'm quickly removing the edges of some of the equipment in the background. This is a pretty standard adjustment in a studio environment. Often we're shooting with lights in the frame, that sort of thing, and we will just take those out in post. Next, I'm removing some more blemishes, just softening the lines. As you can see, very subtle. You may not notice it right away, but as I toggle back and forth, you'll kind of see those adjustments take shape. Next, you'll see me removing some blemishes and lines from my neck. Nothing major, very subtle. Again, subtlety is the key. You can see, though, as I toggle them back and forth, you can see that the difference starts to take shape. Then I get a couple little blemishes here on my forehead. And I'm also kind of fine-tuning and softening some of the lines on my forehead. Now, I'm not removing any of the lines per se. I like to think I've earned every one of those lines on my forehead. Also, as a guy of somebody my age, we would expect forehead lines to be there, so there's really no need to take them out. Now, you could argue a little bit different case for women, but I'm going to talk about retouching women a little bit later in the video. So then I'll kind of soften the bags of my eyes a little bit. This is a pretty popular adjustment for most people. It goes a long way in terms of giving a little bit more energy and life to your image. You do want to retain the skin texture though. You can't go too far as to blow away the skin texture, because then you've gone to the plastic look, which is not something we're going for. Next, you'll see removing a little bit of shine around my nose. This is pretty common, especially if you're not wearing any foundation or makeup. Even sometimes with foundation or makeup that's reflective. So makeup tip, avoid anything reflective. That's a good tip. We're just kind of bringing down that highlight, just kind of blending it in. It's real subtle, it's a process, but that makes a big difference in the overall finish of the image. Not a whole lot to do with my hair, from what little hair that I do have. It's a simple grooming adjustment for the most part on guys. I'll grab any stray hair or kind of random hairs that are sticking out or not cooperating. That's a pretty simple adjustment. For someone with longer hair, I'll clean up the stray hairs. We can even kind of color a few of them too. If you've got a few gray stragglers in there that you're not crazy about, that's an easy adjustment. You got to be careful though on cleaning up too many stray hairs on the hair, because then you get the helmet head effect, which is just simply a hair that's been obviously corrected or cut out. And that just is not the professional look that you want. That's the mark of a kind of an amateur do-it-yourself retouching job. And then we do a little contouring with dodging and burning. That's basically brightening or darkening parts of the images to either enhance or reduce the impact of that part of the image. So if something's brighter, it's going to bring your attention to it. If something's darker, it's going to bring less attention to it. So we darken kind of the jawline, usually darken a little bit under the neck, and then we'll darken kind of around the edge of the forehead too, to kind of bring the attention closer to the mask or the face mask, usually a little bit around the ears as well. Then I will do a little dodging or brightening of some of the lines or wrinkles, so maybe a little under my eyes, I'll dodge that part, some of the lines too around the mouth and face. Moving down, I'll do a quick pass across my shirt just to make sure there's any little lint specks or anything like that, that those aren't causing a problem or a distraction. Those are quick, easy little clicks. Now the fun part, Liquify. So I do use Liquify for most clients. It's a very subtle adjustment though, and basically it's just meant to give the face a little bit of a slimming effect, and we also do it to kind of enhance the jawline a little bit as well. Liquify is also handy to clean up the edges around a shirt or jacket. Sometimes you have like a little wrinkle or bump on the jacket, and you can kind of smooth that out with a little bit of a Liquify adjustment, which is really handy. I'll take one more last look, kind of zoom out, take a broader look at the whole image, maybe grab another stray hair or two, but that's usually about it. After that, the image is ready to save and ready to move forward. Now, the process isn't much different when retouching women. I'll often just go a little softer under the eyes and be a little more liberal on some of the lines and wrinkle reductions, but it's basically the same process. We still want to make sure that we retain skin texture, of course. Sometimes there's a little bit more work to be done on the hair. Again, we do want to be careful to avoid any of the helmet hair look. So if your hair is a little frizzy, be sure to bring some hairspray so that we can kind of tame it down a little bit more in the session. That saves a lot of retouching details after the session. Finally, I'll apply a little skin smoothing on women just to take a little more softer approach, which again is pretty standard in most retouching practices. You still want to be sure to maintain skin texture though, because remember, we're not going for that plastic look. Not appropriate for skin retouching, I would argue, ever. And here again, you can see the before and after version as I toggle back and forth. You can see the biggest changes are really the softening under my eyes, reducing the necklines, and some subtle teeth whitening. That's really, I'd say, 80% of the basics of the retouching process. I believe in retouching really to show the best version of you today. So we can do quite a bit to enhance your favorite features and reduce your less desirable features. Think about it like getting your best night's sleep in years. Maybe before you had kids, before your job became super demanding, maybe before that global pandemic, maybe before your kids were doing school in the next room over as you're trying to work from home. Retouching doesn't solve all your problems though. Proper grooming and makeup is still very important. If you come in with a great base, we can do a lot. in camera and after the fact in Photoshop. Photoshop is very powerful. It's a very powerful tool and can be used in many ways, but like many powerful tools, moderation is the key. Retouching is a very sensitive topic for a lot of people, so I'd be curious to hear what you think about this kind of video. Let me know, and maybe I'll do a few more like this. Keep watching for more headshot tips and tricks, and don't forget to grab my free headshot guide in the link below. You can also check out my website at scottlawrencephoto.com. The links and all are in the description below. You can even book a session online if you're in the Detroit area. Finally, if you did enjoy this video, please give it a like, share it with a friend, maybe somebody in the market for a headshot.